In Wish 3.8.02, we made some changes to the way the spell checker works. And I wanted to show those functions to you in the way that they've changed here now. The first thing you'll notice is I'm sitting on a login screen, and the login at the very bottom here has a section about the spell check function. And basically, what this is at the bottom is it gives you your default choices as a user. So each user can have their own choice. So if I log in here as the admin, that happens to be the default choice. I'm just going to click this function on for a moment right now. So the two things are you can disable the spell checker entirely or enable it. And then once it's enabled, you can decide whether or not the spell check as you type is enabled. In the versions of Wish prior to this one, the behavior would be the same as having both of these checked. So I'm going to start there and show you why we've considered changing this. So just to recap, the default now is this with the spell check function enabled, but the spell check as you type disabled. I want to put this on so that you can see what the difference would be. So if I go into a client's file and I'm creating a new note in here, currently when you're typing, if you make mistakes in here, it will underline the word under red. That's what most of you are familiar with. We found recently in the newer builds of Windows, predominantly the newer ones in Windows 10, and also if you are using remote server access through Windows 2019, you'll find that you've got a speed issue with typing with the more mistakes you make. So if I type a sentence like this, no problem. I have no problem with that at all. You had seen when I misspelled a word, it underlined it in red, but I corrected it right away. Now, if I continue to type and just make some errors without correcting them, you will notice how slow the typing gets. So I will do that again. And now suddenly, it doesn't matter how fast I type, the typing just slows down dramatically. So that slowness is actually due to the fact that I've got my typing or my spell checker to check the spelling as I type. Once again, going back to the login, that's this bottom item is clicked on. So the default now is actually with it off. So what you'll see now is if I type and make mistakes, it doesn't slow me down. So you see how I made some obvious errors there. Now they're not underlined in red, but they're clearly errors. Now, previously in Wish, way before Windows 10 came out, that didn't really tend to slow you down too much with the red squiggly line. It does now, and we just don't seem to have any control over changing that behavior. So the best choice now is to turn it so that the auto spelling correction is not on, or auto spell check is not enabled. And then what you can do is when you're done typing, if you right click on your mouse, you can go in and you can correct each word. Or furthermore, if I get to a totally different spot, if I right click on my mouse, I can also go down here and I can turn this back on, spell checking as I type. I can turn that on like this. And then if I move into here and hit a space, you'll see it will underline. So that's probably the best way, particularly when you're doing long typing. The other thing that you can do is you can, by the way, if I right click and I'm on a word that's misspelled, that's why it's popping up and asking me the correction to make. But I'm going to click over here. If I right click where there's not an error, I get my full menu up. And you can also do something like this. You can click on this check spelling and it will go through each of the words that are are not spelled correctly, and then you can change them. So you can either type in what you want it to do, or you can select off the list. like that. And I'm not paying too much attention to what the words I'm picking here, but you can see how it's offering me suggestions in here. And that's probably the best way to do the typing. So the default that we feel would work best for everybody is if you when you log on, let me just save this. So if I log off and if I log back on now, the best choice for most people is to leave the spell check enabled, but turn off the spell check as you type. And then it will make it much easier for you to type. And then at the end, when you're done typing, let's just go through that again one more time. And if I go into my client here, and if I go to notes, for example, new note, okay, so then when I'm done typing, if I right click and I like this one, check spelling, it will go through each word that's misspelled. I can move this out of the way. I can say, oh yes, test is the right word and speed is the right word here. So those are the changes to the spell check module that we made in 3.8.02 of Wish. One last thing, if you want to change the language that you're checking, you can right click here and go down to spell check language and you can choose it off here. Okay, so you'll see that that's if I change my spell checking to French. So you can do that right down here with that button there. Well, that's all I've had to show you on the changes that we made to the spell check function in Wish 3.8.02. Thank you.